What's up, guys? This is Big D, and I am the Grim Rider. Back once again with yet another Motovlog. And today I'm out on the bike, and I have a few members of the riding club behind me. So I am in the middle of leading a group ride. And so that got me to thinking about something that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And you see it in the title of the video here. This is 5 tips for leading a group with no headsets. And the reason I stress the no headsets portion of this topic is because our group has never really used headsets. Over the years, we've had a couple members that had headsets and would communicate back and forth with each other and things, but and our group's always been kind of small, and so the headsets have never been really that essential to us either way. But we've never really used headsets, and so I've always led a group without one. And so the headsets, if you had a headset and were able to communicate with everybody in your group, some of these points may be null and void because you'd be able to communicate some of these things back and forth amongst yourselves. But since I've never used a headset, I've had to come up with ways to lead a group, and there's other things that I always need to keep in mind as I'm leading a group. So in no particular order, these are my 5 tips. And so starting out with number 5, be mindful of gas tank sizes. And that's something that I don't think some people might think about, but different motorcycles have different size gas tanks. And so you may have to make a conscious decision and effort to make sure you stop maybe a little more often than you normally would, because a couple other guys or gals in your group may not be able to go as far as you. And you're not going to be able to communicate that very well while you're leading with no headsets. I mean, you can come up with some hand signals and stuff, and I'll touch base on that again here in a second. But as a perfect example, like say today I'm riding Grim, and Grim's got, I believe it's like a 6-gallon tank. Now my wife is not riding with me today, but if she was and she was riding her own bike, she's got an 883 Sportster, which is like a 2.5 gallon tank or something. So she's only going to be able to go about half of the distance that I'm going to be able to go. So we're going to have to stop just a little bit more often in order to make sure we keep the gas tanks full, so we don't end up having somebody run out of gas and have a whole nother problem. So again, it's one of those small things that I think some people don't think about as often as maybe they should. Now, if everybody's riding about the same type of bike and, you know, everybody's got about the same size gas tanks, that's not really going to be that big of a problem anyways. But it's at some point, if you find yourself, you know, riding and especially leading the group, you need to be mindful that sometimes somebody might not be able to go the distance that you can on a tank of fuel, and you're going to have to stop to make sure that they can get some fuel. So number 4 is trying your absolute best to keep your pack together. And I'm talking about like stoplights and intersections and things. And obviously, I understand that the bigger the group you have, the harder that's going to be. And even other factors are involved, like you know, just your surroundings. If you're riding out in the open, out in the country, you know, there's going to be less stoplights and things of that nature to really worry about. But if you, like us, all the time, even if we are riding out in the country, we do have to end up having to go through a couple small towns here and there, and you find stoplights and intersections and things. And so, you know, trying to make a conscious effort to try to keep your group together as best you can, like this right here. This is going to be a prime example, for instance. So I'm going to be going around a slow car, and I'm going to need to go fast enough to get past this car and make sure that the rest of the group has enough space in order to get in front of that same car also, and not go around this car if I don't have enough room in the other lane from the oncoming traffic to make sure I get everybody around in a timely fashion. So that's a perfect example right there, doing that correctly. And stoplights come to mind for me personally, right off the top of my head, because a lot of the time, again, especially with no headsets, you can't just tell everybody, hey, let's just go and let's get through this light. So I've found that, at least at stoplights, and most of them, not all of them, but a lot of the times, stoplights nowadays, they all have the crosswalk lights on the corners of the intersection, and that's for your pedestrians to, for your walkways and things. And a lot of them now have countdowns, I've noticed. And one little thing that I started to do years ago is as we're getting up to a light, first off, I established, well, if that light's been green for quite a while on my way up to it, there's a decent chance that that light will change by the time we get there, or by the time half the group gets there. So I may actually even slow everybody down a little bit, trying to time that light just right if it's been green a while. And even if we have to stop, that's fine, but we keep the group together that way. Now, if I'm heading up to a light and it had turned just a little bit before we got there, then I'll pay attention to those crosswalk lights, and a lot of them have countdowns. Not all of them, so this isn't a foolproof thing, but a lot of them have countdowns, and you start seeing that they start counting down, I think, from about 20, most of them. And some of them, they will, the lights, the traffic lights, will change to yellow at 3, or some of them will change by the time it counts all the way down to 0. But if you can see that countdown and see that you've got a few seconds left, then you have a pretty good chance of getting your entire group through that stoplight. And again, if that countdown is getting pretty low by the time you get there, it may be a good idea to stop so you can keep your group intact, and so that you're not leaving people behind, and then you have to try to find a way to either pull off the side of the road or in a parking lot or somewhere and try to time everything just right, trying to get everybody back together before you can take off again. So just, again, it can't be done all the time. You're going to come across sometimes where your group might get split up a little bit or something, but, do your absolute best to keep your pack together. And tip number 3, and that kind of coincides with this keeping your pack together, is having eyes in the back of your head. And what I mean by that, essentially, is look in your rear view mirrors a lot. When I lead, especially since we don't have the headsets, the only thing I can see is what's in my mirrors. And, you really have to pay attention to what's going on behind you. If somebody's missing, you're going to have to figure out a way to stop and get everybody back together. Or if somebody's having an issue, somebody could be waving at you. Somebody could, and I mentioned hand signals. I'll again touch base on that in a little bit more here in just a minute. But for going back to the gas tank size of thing, if somebody's, if you come up with a hand signal, whatever it may be, and each group will probably have different hand signals, but as long as everybody in your group knows what the hand signals are and knows the meaning of them and, uses them, then, like, if they were pointing at their gas tank, or if they have some other type of hand signal for that, then you're going to have to pay attention in your mirrors to see that. You're going to want to pay attention and keep track of where everybody is in your group and make sure that everybody is riding safe. You're going to have to pay attention to, especially if, say, you're like us and you got a group and you have a lot of core members and you ride together all the time, you start to really understand how everybody rides. But if you get somebody new in the group and you don't really know how they ride, if they're kind of all over the place, or if they're not doing something that they maybe should be doing, as the leader of the group, it is your responsibility, once you stop, or once you get up to a place where you can stop, and you tell them, like, look, you need to be doing this, or you shouldn't be doing that, or, but you got to pay attention. You have to be paying attention, obviously, ahead of you. But, in my experience, you also have to pay just as much, maybe if not more, attention to your rear view mirrors to make sure that, your group is functioning the way it's supposed to, everybody's riding safe, and there isn't any problems. So being the leader of a group, especially again with no headsets, you have a lot to pay attention to. So you just have to be mindful of all of that kind of stuff. So I'd mentioned it a couple times now, and this one is very important. So number 2, using your hand signals. Now, again, I'd mentioned every group may have different hand signals. Some of them are universal, and I've noticed that many groups use the same hand signals for a lot of different things, but a couple of them may be different. Well, you as the leader of the group, you need to have those hand signals memorized, and you need to be using them without thought. You need to get to a point where it is second nature for you to use those hand signals, and to let everybody else in your group know what you're going to be doing. Whether you're stopping, slowing down, coming up to train tracks, whether you're trying to pass a slow car, whether you're trying to tighten up, the group, or whatever the case may be, you need to be letting those behind you know what you want and what needs to happen, because you're responsible for leading this group and keeping everybody together and safe and all that. So they need to know what's going on. Hand signals are the best way to do that. And I know there's been a couple people, they've even cracked a joke at me and gave me a hard time every once in a while, where like, I bet you even use your hand signals when you're just riding by yourself. And you know what? Yeah, I do. And it's just a way for me to keep myself using them, so that when I do have a group behind me, it is second nature. I don't have to think about it. I will throw out them hand signals every single time for whatever the case may be. And it's also very important, for the group to then pass them back. But they're not going to pass them back if you, the leader, are not using them in the first place. So it's very, very important to use your hand signals and make sure everybody else knows them and is using them also, so that you can, keep the group on the same page. And that leads me to my final point, and I do feel that this may just be the most important. If you're leading a group, and quite honestly, I think this goes with either headsets or no headsets, but it's I feel even more important with the no headsets, because once again, you can't communicate with the rest of the group. You can't tell everybody, hey, I'm going to turn here, I'm going to turn there. So number 1 for me is to plan your route. Absolutely 100% plan your route ahead of time. Now, once again, circumstances are going to change day by day, ride by ride, no matter what. That's just the way things are. So, and it's happened to me many, many times, guys, where I would meticulously plan my route, sometimes a couple days, sometimes even a week in advance, depending on the length of the ride. And even if it's somewhere that I've rode to and I've taken a group to many, many times, I'll still refresh my memory and go, okay, I'm probably going to take this road here to that road here, and I'm going to go this way and I'm going to go that way, and I'm going to have to, plan your route. And the reason, to me, that is so important, because, again, you have, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 motorcycles, or 8, 9, 10 motorcycles, it doesn't matter. If you have somebody behind you, they are counting on you to know exactly where you're going and to know what you're doing. They are watching you and following you. So if you are not planning your route, and you decide on a moment's notice that you're going to make a right turn with no warning, and just abruptly, well, and I've had this happen to me a couple times, where we're riding, I'm in the group, there's somebody else leading, and then next thing that I know, the leader just all of a sudden decides that they're just going to turn right here and now. No warning, no, you can tell that this wasn't planned, but everybody else stacks up behind them. Everybody slams on the brakes, somebody about runs into somebody, and it could be a very big problem. So you need to plan your route, and you have to have that memorized. And if it's a very long ride, to me personally, there is absolutely no shame in stopping every once in a while, if need be, to refresh your memory on what the next part of your route was. If it has to come to that. If you can visualize and memorize your route 100% without stopping, then that's fine, that's great. But if you can't, say, okay, well, I was going to go here and here and here, and I've done that, but now, right off the top of my head, I know I'm supposed to go down so far, but what was the name of that next road? Or what was the number of that next road? Or whatever. If you need to stop and look it back, I mean, we've all got maps right in our pockets every minute of every day nowadays. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever that you don't have a route planned, and if you need to refresh your memory on it every so often to make sure you know exactly where you're going, because once again, and I'll keep saying this, the safety of the group is most important, and if you're just doing things on a whim, something can go wrong, and you're putting yourself, but not only yourself, but everybody else behind you in jeopardy because you don't know what you're doing. I wholeheartedly believe that if you don't do this one thing, again, headset or no headset, if you don't plan your route, you do not deserve, for any reason whatsoever, to lead anybody anywhere. I completely 100% believe that. So, but again, and I've said it, that there are circumstances that, excuse me, may change, well, your plan. I've had multiple times too myself where, you know, I've meticulously planned a route. We get so far and all of a sudden there's a detour, there's road work, there's possibly, you know, an accident, whatever the case may be, but you have to then divert from your original route. That happens. That can't be avoided all the time. Typically, if there is a detour, I'll just follow that detour because I know that most likely that detour is going to get me right back to where I was originally going anyway. So normally I'll just follow the detour and wind back up where I was supposed to go in the first place. Sometimes that doesn't happen either. So if I start following that detour and all of a sudden, you know, we've been on this detour for a good couple minutes and it don't seem like we're getting back to where we're supposed to go, well then, my next thing is I'm looking for a place to stop because now I need to replan. I need to figure out how to get back to where I'm going and get back on my original route, because everybody behind me is counting on me to know where I'm going and to know what I'm doing. So that is extremely important. I think the most important thing when leading a group is knowing where you're going. Plan that route ahead of time so that you know where you're going and everybody behind you has the confidence in you to know where you're going and to know what you're doing. A planned ride is a safe ride, is a fun ride. So plan your route. Use your hand signals. Make sure you're paying attention to the group behind you as well as in front of you, obviously. Try to keep your group together as best as you possibly can, and be mindful that not every motorcycle may be able to go as far distance-wise as yours on a tank of fuel. So those are just 5 tips that I have for leading a group without headsets. So there we have it. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope that some of you guys will take some things that I've said here to heart, and maybe you already do all of these things, and fantastic. And if you don't, and if you've, you know, maybe if I've said something here today in this video that will get you thinking about something and things to think about while you are leading a group. Maybe you never lead a group, and some of this you might not have to worry about at all. But it is still information that is good to think about and to keep in mind, whether you're leading or you're not leading. But of course, especially if you're leading, was the whole point of this this video. So now that I'm starting to ramble, I am going to get out of here because once again I am still leading this group. And one other little thing, try to keep your distractions to a minimum. So let's throw that in there right here at the very, very end. So with that being said, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell, because if you haven't done that already, do so. Become part of the Grim crew so that you don't miss out on any rides, motovlogs, or road stories, or whatever it is else I decide to do. Make sure you stay up to date with all the content. You can follow me also on Facebook and Instagram. And with that being said, I am Big D. I am the Grim Rider, and until next time, we will catch you down the road.